She's going to teach you how to be a creator. Really done incredible work over the past 4 years. She's a coach that has different options for coaching that she has utilized. She's been a VP of a company. She has a podcast that has over 7 million downloads. And she's one of the most energetic, free people I've ever seen in my life. So if you were here at the celebration, she was dancing the whole time. I need that kind of energy. My monsters are not working anymore, so I need to figure out where she's getting it from. But really, honestly, I want you to open your hearts, your ears, and your minds to Melissa. Yep.
Can you hear me? All right. We have, it's been less than 24 hours, and we've already played with fire, laughed, cried. I am so excited to be here, and a little emotional, actually. This will be the longest that I've ever been away from my babies, my 2 little boys, which is a little harder than I thought it would be. But also, yesterday, I got to fly here alone. Seriously, I got to relax. No one touching me. No one asking for snacks every 5 seconds. Well, except Gary in 2D. Dude treated the armrest like an emotional support animal. I've had relationships with less physical contact. Yesterday was full of surprises, actually. I splurged on lounge access because sometimes money can buy happiness, but it just looks like a printer pancake, apparently. That was real in there, and outlet access. So I sat there with my latte, and I was people watching. Well, I was sitting right next to this woman, and everything about her screamed influencer in the wild. And so I'm staring. She had the perfect outfit, perfect hair, perfect makeup, at 5 a.m. in Terminal B. And so I'm staring at her, and she's hunched over her phone, and she's scrolling. And her thumb has this rhythm going to it, right? But it's a little different from what I'm used to seeing. It was more like scroll, screenshot, scroll, screenshot. And then every few seconds, she'd pop over to Pinterest and upload all of her screenshots to a Pinterest album. And so I'm just eavesdropping, and I'm the kind of person that has to talk to strangers. And so I'm looking over at her, and I'm like, so what you doing? You planning a wedding or a photo shoot? And she looks at me like mildly annoyed that I'd broken her trance, and she's just like, no, I'm just staying up with the trends. And I'm like, I like nod, but then my brain does that thing where it takes something that's usually kind of normal and then it pulls it apart until you realize how weird it is. Because she's not just scrolling. She's creating a digital collection of all the things that someone else has decided was cool enough to like. Think about what Pinterest even is. It's not about creating, it's about collecting. Collecting images of pre-designed kitchens and curated vacations and outfits that other people have styled. It's a digital collection of other people's visions. And we all know that these trends aren't usually a product of our collective human evolution, right? They're usually chosen by a bunch of people in suits in a high-rise somewhere brainstorming ways to sell us more stuff this season. And so I watch her, and she's doing that for 20 minutes, collecting other people's lives, other people's ideas, other people's identities. And I don't want to sound like I'm judging her because I am her. We all are, right? We want to belong. And so we borrow what the world says is right or worthy without asking if it's true for us. And here's what I'm seeing. Most of us aren't living our dreams. We're living our algorithms. And the scary part is we don't even realize it until something or someone interrupts our scroll and we wake up. My wake-up call came in a jail cell. I'm going to be honest, it wasn't the first time I was there. Wasn't for the DUI, or the 2 almost DUIs, or the couple of drop-ins I had during my klepto phase where I was stealing lip glosses from Walmart. No, child's play. This one was different. This time I was facing felony charges for a crime I didn't commit. Yeah. And I remember so vividly sitting in that jail cell with about 20 other women, and I was on the bottom steel bunk in my jail scrubs and these torn sheets that a fellow inmate had helped me put on, and I was so stressed out. But it wasn't because of the charges or the fact that my life was unraveling. I was so stressed out because my eating disorder was so severe that all I could think was, how am I going to find enough privacy to purge this jail food? Of all the things. It was absurd. But I think that's what happens when you spend years systematically turning off your body's signals. Because that's what bulimia really is. It's training yourself not to feel. Not to feel when you're hungry, not to feel when you're full, not to feel when something's wrong. And it was one of the first times I really remember stepping outside of myself. And I was watching my life like a movie. And I kept thinking maybe I'd wake up like it was some sort of a nightmare. Here's what I wish I had known back then. Every thought is creating your reality. Every choice you make is creating your reality. And it's not just the big and the obvious ones. It's the small ones that we make every day. The thoughts we let ruminate in our heads. The boundaries we ignore because it's not that big of a deal. The parts of ourselves that we push down because we don't think it fits the image that we need to maintain. It all led me to that bunk. When I was 15, I blacked out at my first high school party. Apparently, my introduction to alcohol involved or ended with me lying in a pile of my own vomit while I was sexually assaulted. And because nothing stays a secret in high school, I got to hear all about it as it spread around the school. Because it turns out my assault also had an audience. Well, here's the thing about trauma. Sometimes your brain just goes, nope, we're not doing this. And so I decided I was fine. I was fine. Everything's fine. And if you would have asked me, I believed that I was fine because I was still going to school. People still liked me. I still had my sense of humor. But what I couldn't see is that my sense of self was completely disappearing. And it wasn't some big dramatic moment where everything fell apart. It was slower than that. Each time I pushed down what I was really feeling, each time I told myself that everything was okay, every year, just a little by little. It was kind of like that thing where you put a frog in water and you slowly turn up the heat, but the frog doesn't jump out because it doesn't realize that it's being cooked alive. That was me. I had no idea how much of myself I was losing. But the less I valued myself, the more I craved validation from other people. And the worse I treated myself, the worse I allowed myself to be treated. It's kind of like we all have this price tag that we put on ourselves, and the world just sort of follows our lead. And so then my dad died. And whatever fragile sense of self I had left, died with him. And at this point, I didn't really know how to handle anything. I was just dissolving inside. And so I did what a lot of us do when the pain gets too big. I numbed it all out with bulimia, alcohol, whatever addiction promised to help me feel something else. And I think when you can't find anything inside of yourself to hold on to, you'll reach for anything to fill the void. I was empty, and I didn't really know it. I just knew that I was aching. It was like I barely noticed. My normal was just kept shifting a little bit. And so I latched on to anything that made me feel even just a little bit valuable or worthy, even if it was temporary or it came with a price. And then I met Matt, jewelry guy. He gave me all the shiny things that made me feel valuable. He actually gave me this antique diamond necklace on our very first date. We ate at Michelin star restaurants every night. We stayed at 5-star resorts almost every single night. It was luxury. And his story started small. We were staying at resorts all the time because his house was being renovated, so we couldn't go there. But then I found out he actually lived with his mom. But he was just there to help take care of his disabled brother. It was actually kind of sweet. He just didn't want to lay it all on me all at once. And then I found out that his brother didn't actually live there, and that his disability was a mild case of ADD. Each lie got a little bit bigger, and each excuse got a little easier to swallow. It was like he was training me to deep throat his bullshit, you know? And you guys, I knew. I could feel something was off. I knew there were cracks in the reality that he was selling me. But admitting it meant admitting that the dream was dead, that there was no knight in shining armor coming to sweep me into his life and out of mine. And that meant facing everything that I had been running from. And so when I found out he was cheating on me repeatedly, I buried that too, because the apologies just felt so good. And then when I found out about his meth addiction, you guys, I was relieved, because at least now there was something outside of myself to blame. Meth was the reason that he couldn't see me. And I know, I wasn't just ignoring red flags at this point. I was collecting them like they'd complete some sort of a set. I stopped seeing all my friends. I stopped doing anything I thought I loved. His world became my entire world because he sold me this beautiful story about how I was the only one who could really see him. And that made me feel valuable. But deep down, he was all I believed I deserved. And if he barely wanted me, why would somebody better? And so 1.5 years into our relationship, Matt was drowning in addictions, but nothing he did really shocked me enough to leave because I could relate. His story was so familiar to me. And he was just reflecting back all of the things that I already believed to be true. Here's what I wish I had known back then. Even when you think you're stuck, you are still creating. Every thought, every moment. I think there's this big misconception in the self-development world. We read The Secret, or we follow some manifesting accounts online, and we're like, Holy shit, I've got this magical power to create my reality. But then we treat it like it's optional. Like it's this special tool that we pick up when we want something and put down when we don't. But it doesn't work like that. You don't get to opt out. You can't put your creator powers on hold when you don't feel like using them. Every thought is creating ripples through your reality. Every belief is shaping what shows up for you. So even when you're not consciously creating, you're just strengthening your unconscious patterns. And so the only choice you really have is to create consciously or by default, by your algorithm. Right after my conviction, I moved to LA to rebuild. It was more to save my life, really. At the time, I wasn't thinking about personal development or transformation. I was just desperate to make different choices. And so I was reading every book I could get my hands on and going to yoga and breath work and Reiki and moon ceremonies and spiritual circles. And for a while, it worked, or it felt like it worked. As long as I kept moving, kept seeking, kept doing, I could pretend I was healing. I didn't see that I was still just running from myself, but in more spiritual looking ways. But there was this one breathwork session in LA that was almost as powerful as any plant medicine ceremony that I've done. We were doing this heart-opening rhythmic practice where you breathe into your belly and then your chest and then you exhale. Belly, chest, exhale, over and over again, like... And at first it felt awkward and uncomfortable. It was like there was this block, like I was trying to force something that didn't want to move. But I kept going. And about 15 minutes in, it was like my chest cracked open. And suddenly I wasn't just in the room anymore. I was in this almost dreamlike scene. And I could see myself as a little girl, as this tiny child. And she was crumpled on the ground like she didn't want to be seen, with her hair covering her eyes. And she was trembling, so small and fragile. And I could hear these voices like a loudspeaker blaring down. You know you were a mistake. Nobody ever wanted you. You're gaining weight again. Your laugh is too weird. Your voice is too loud. Why can't you just be normal? Don't you see how everyone has their shit together? Nobody wants you here. On. And it was brutal. But then I realized I wasn't just hearing some random act of cruelty. I was hearing myself systematically destroy this little girl with my own thoughts. I realized I'd been hearing those same voices my entire life, letting them run in the background like some sort of a toxic playlist. But seeing them aimed at this little version of me, it broke something in me. And I kept breathing. And suddenly something shifted. And I looked at her, and she started to lift her head with tears in her eyes as though she was pleading with me to finally see her. And as our eyes met, I knew she is me. And I am the only one who can protect her. And the moment I had that knowing, I was in this completely different memory. I was sitting at my little desk by the window, and the warm afternoon sun was glowing on my shoulders, and I was completely lost in a story I was creating. My hand was going so fast, barely able to keep up with the worlds I was creating. No one had taught me yet what I could say, what stories I could tell, who I could be, and so I was just creating. And I was unafraid and whole and completely, wildly myself. And I remembered what it felt like to be her. That's what stillness does. It breaks down the walls you didn't even know you built. And it brings you face to face with the parts of yourself you've been running from. And it shows you what's been there all along. Somewhere along the way, I had started to see my limitations as stop signs. As the universe's way of saying, nope, not for you. And so when I got that felony, it felt like the game was over. How was I going to explain that crazy story on 2 lines of a job application, or a rental application, or TSA pre-check? And so it felt like the prison bars had followed me straight out of jail. But as my inner world shifted, so did my questions. And I started to wonder, what if my limitations aren't stop signs? What if they're guideposts? I think I skipped a couple slides here because this button isn't working, so, well, no. Whatever, I'm putting this down. What if they're guideposts? Because the truth is, if things had been easier, I probably would have taken the safe route. I might have gotten a nice job and made decent money and the golden handcuffs. And I might have been comfortable. But I don't think I would have been alive. I don't think I would have answered my soul's calling. That felony took away all the safe options, and it left me with the one path I'd been too scared to consider: creating something of my own. And at first I was terrified. There were the usual suspects, like, what if I waste even more time? Or what if I fail publicly? But there was also, what if this actually works and I'm exposed? People find out my past. I was trying to create a life while keeping all the messy, broken parts of me locked away. What can I do despite this? How can I hide this? How can I keep this from affecting me? I was still running, still creating little compartments, little fragments of who I thought I should be. But through the stillness, more shifts. And my questions evolved into, what if this happened for me? What is this guiding me toward? Who have I become through this? What if I trusted that none of this was a mistake and that I came here for this? And that question cracked something open in me. It was like I was finally picking up all the pieces of myself. That little girl from the breathwork session, my traumatized teenage self, the 20-year-old that I thought was bad, and I was taking them with me, finally seeing them for their value. And the moment that I did that, my vision started to come into focus. I could see what I was here to do. I could see myself on a stage, speaking my truth, sharing my story. And that vision unlocked more questions. How can I get better at that? How can I learn to speak with no one else's permission? And so I started a podcast. And within 6 months, I had sponsors reaching out to me. I quit my job. I was speaking at podcasting conferences. And sure, I was highly strategic, because that is the kind of girl I am. But also, for the first time, I wasn't getting in my own way. Because here's what no one tells you about creation. When you have internal beliefs that conflict with your desires, you will come up against yourself. It's like driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. That shame I kept trying to push down, it didn't go away just because I refused to look at it. It was still there, still creating what I believed to be possible, creating who I thought I deserved to be, creating these little coping mechanisms because I wasn't healing, like becoming a klepto. You know, when you feel like everything's been taken from you, there's something oddly powerful about taking things back, even when it's just lip gloss from Walmart. But wouldn't you know it, during that exact time in my life, I ended up with a man who was literally robbing houses for a living. I don't think that was a coincidence. The universe wasn't punishing me. It was matching my energy. It was taking what I was putting out there and amplifying it back to me tenfold. I used to think, oh, I'm so unlucky. But now I say, look how powerful I am. Look at all I created without even trying. Imagine what's possible when I do it all on purpose. And so when I started the podcast, it wasn't about chasing success or creating some perfect business. It was just doing something that lit me up, something that made meaning of the mess. And the surprising part was sharing my story didn't just help other people. It helped me heal. Because shame doesn't stay neatly tucked away. It lingers, pulling you back. And when you're scrolling through other people's lives instead of living your own, you can't be here now. You can't be alive in your own life. Life isn't meant to be this perfectly curated Pinterest board. It's messy. It's unpredictable. It's alive. And when you're alive in your own life, you can finally hear yourself. And not your programming, not your algorithm, but that quiet voice inside that's been waiting for you to listen. And mine kept pointing me back to that girl I kept trying to hide. The one who made all of those messy, reckless mistakes. And it turns out she wasn't just a liability. She had a boldness I didn't want to lose. She might have done some really crazy shit sometimes. But you want to know what? We had a lot of fucking fun together too. She knew how to live. She knew how to take risks. And when I stopped hiding her, I could show up as all of me. Flaws, fire, truth. And the truth is, you can't create your future while rejecting your past. You can't hear your soul's voice when you're drowning it out in someone else's narrative. And you definitely can't become who you're meant to be when you're hiding pieces of yourself that make you whole. And that's the real secret of creation. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about having the courage to be everything that you already are. So we've been talking a lot about conscious creation, but it's not enough to know it. You have to feel it. So we're going to do something right now. And I'm going to have you close your eyes. And it's not about a perfect meditation posture or looking spiritual. We just want to get real with ourselves. And I want you to let your truth bubble up with these questions I'm going to ask you. Don't question them. Don't worry about how or having it all figured out. Just allow them. So take a grounding breath in. What dreams have been whispering to you that you keep scrolling past? What parts of your story have you labeled as a mistake? What if those weren't blocks, but portals? What parts of yourself are you tired of hiding? What if you trusted that nothing, none of it, was a mistake, and that you came here for this? Now I want you to take whatever has arisen, and again, don't worry about having it all figured out. Don't wonder about the how or the when. Just capture a little of its energy. And when you're ready, begin to open your eyes. And I want you to find a partner. And we're going to take turns. And we're going to be doing more than just sharing. It's not just sharing, it's an act of creation. And so you're going to tell your partner what arose for you. And it can be anything. There's no wrong way of doing this. It can be a vision. It can be a part of yourself that you've been hiding. It can be how you see a through line between your mistakes and your future. Whatever, even if it's not all of the pieces, you're going to share. And partner, you're just going to hold space. You're witnessing an act of creation. It's sacred. You can affirm, but just listen and hold space. Okay, grab a partner, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes just to speak. And see if you can keep speaking that whole 2 minutes, and then we're going to switch. No, it was going to be for that, and we can just ignore it. Yeah, that's fine. Well, I am doing. No. Just a few more seconds here. All right, we're going to switch. Switch partners. So whoever was listening is now the speaker. The creator. Just about 30 seconds left. And we're going to wrap up. Returning to our seats. What? Oh, gotcha. Okay. Cool. All right. Everyone take a collective deep breath in. I want you to feel what's happening in your body right now. Maybe it's a little flutter, maybe it's excitement. It's not just emotion, that's recognition. When you leave this retreat, life will try to pull you back into that screenshot rhythm, collecting other people's lives, curating fragments of who you think you should be. But now you know, you're not here to do that. You're here to create your own vision. Every one of you are fractals of God here to have a human experience. Every journey just as worthy as the other one. Your story isn't meant to be hidden. It's meant to be embraced and shared and felt and integrated. You're already creating. Every thought, every belief, every action. And I challenge you to consider thinking those things that are there, that you feel like will always be there. What if it's not? What if that's just a neural pathway you've given too much time to run free, too much time to play, and you've decided to choose something different now? I want to leave you with something that came through me when I was asking for guidance, when I was trying to figure out what the hell it was all for, when I was crying because of how much of my life that I had wasted and given away to somebody who didn't deserve it, and ooh, if only I had started earlier. And I sat down and I started to play, to immerse myself in my life. And I wrote something that just flowed, so I don't even really want to take credit for it. Have you ever wondered how the breath became the bone? How the song found its rhythm through just one majestic tone? I can tell you how the sand and sea descended from their throne and how consciousness expanded so it wouldn't be alone. But the piece you need to know is your place within it all. The knowingness you knew before your mind tricked you to fall. Before you broke your magic wand with apps and pills and alcohol. And numbed yourself to wonder and the truth that you're it all. You are the universe, dreaming itself real, conjuring entire worlds through what you think and feel. Every doubt, tear, and heartache were like spokes in the wheel, each chosen by our soul to be a means for you to heal. You're the dreamer and the dream, the seeker and the sought, the question and the answer, the energy of thought. There's an endless stream of possible flowing through your veins, but you remain beholden to imaginary chains. You're the spark within the void, igniting galaxies with thought, but you identify instead with everything you're not. You are the universe, dreaming itself known. If you knew what was within you, you would never feel alone. You're the portal through which pure potential pours. If you only knew your magic, you would see the world is yours.
Yeah!
Give it up for Melissa one more time.
Thank you.
All right, how are we feeling?